The jungle planet X427 exhaled heat like a living thing, its air thick with the scent of rotting vegetation and iron-rich blood. From the observation deck of the Imperial science vessel, Omniscient, Captain Vexis Talor watched the feed from the surface with detached disdain, her four-fingered hands clasped behind her carapaced back. The glowing screens cast an eerie blue pallor across her chitinous features, highlighting the subtle tremors of irritation in her mandibles. "Another waste of time and resources," she muttered, the translator implant in her throat buzzing slightly as it converted her clicks and hisses into standard galactic. "This species won't last an hour down there." Beside her, Dr. Krell Mitani adjusted his ocular implants with delicate precision, the mechanical lenses whirring softly as they zoomed in on the human male being deposited onto the killing fields below. The creature, designated Subject H287 in their records, stood barefoot in the muck, clad only in tattered fatigues that might have once been some sort of uniform. His dark eyes scanned the tree line with unsettling calm, his breathing steady despite the 120% gravity and 50 degrees Celsius heat that made the air shimmer. "You continue to underestimate them, Captain," Krell said, his voice carrying the patient tone of someone who had repeated this argument too many times. "Humans hail from a Class 12 death world. Their baseline survival instincts are unorthodox by civilized standards." Vexis turned sharply, her compound eyes reflecting the multiple camera feeds in miniature. "Look at it, Doctor. No claws, no venom, no natural armor. Soft skin, brittle bones, and a respiratory system that can't even filter basic atmospheric toxins." She gestured contemptuously at the screen. "They're prey animals pretending to be predators." A derisive snort came from the corner, where Engineer Zix9 leaned against a console, polishing a plasma scalpel with deliberate disinterest. The droid's photoreceptors flickered with amusement. "Famous last words, Captain. Shall I prepare the I told you so protocol for my memory banks?" Vexis ignored the insubordinate machine, turning instead to Lieutenant Nara Weiss, who sat hunched over the comm station. The young officer's frilled ears twitched nervously as she monitored the bioscanners. "Status report, Lieutenant." Nara hesitated, her fingers hovering over the holographic display. "The Vorkhan in Sector 7 has detected the human scent trail. It's closing in rapidly." Her voice trembled slightly. Whether from fear or excitement, it was hard to tell. On the screen, the human, Sergeant Marcus Rook Vance, though the Empire didn't know that yet, crouched low, pressing a hand into the mud. He rubbed the dark soil between his fingers, sniffed it, then wiped it across his face and arms in deliberate streaks. The crew watched in confusion as he began gathering loose stones from the riverbank, testing each one's weight before selecting a particularly jagged specimen. "He's not running," Krell observed, his voice tinged with fascination. "Not hiding. He's preparing." Vexis's mandibles clicked in derision. "Preparing to die, perhaps." Then the Vorkhan struck. 18 feet of armored muscle and serrated talons erupted from the undergrowth with terrifying speed, its maw distending in a shriek that vibrated through the observation deck's speakers. The crew instinctively recoiled. Even Vexis took half a step back, as the monster's killing claws descended toward the seemingly helpless human. Rook moved. Not away, but sideways in a fluid roll that carried him just beyond the killing arc. The Vorkhan's talons gouged deep furrows in the earth, where he had stood half a second before. Before the creature could reorient, Rook was already moving again. Not retreating, but charging forward, the jagged stone held like a dagger in his fist. The Vorkhan whipped its spiked tail around, the venomous barb missing Rook's ribs by less than an inch. He didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. With a grunt of effort, he jumped onto the monster's descending forearm, using its own momentum to carry him upward, and drove the rock into its left eye with the precision of a surgeon. The observation deck erupted in gasps. The beast convulsed violently, its roar cutting off in a wet gurgle as Rook twisted the stone deeper, his muscles straining against the creature's thrashing. For one horrifying, mesmerizing heartbeat, the two were locked in grotesque intimacy, predator and prey, roles reversed in the most fundamental way possible. Then, with a final, sickening crunch, the Vorakan collapsed, its massive body shaking the ground as it fell. Silence filled the observation deck, broken only by the static hum of the surveillance equipment. Krell was the first to speak, his voice hushed with awe. "Did he just kill a fully grown Class 12 apex predator with a goddamned rock?" Zix-9 finished, tilting its head in a disturbingly human gesture of disbelief. Yes, he most certainly did." Vexis's carapace darkened with fury, her claws leaving faint scratches on the console as she gripped it. "This is a fluke. There must be some malfunction in the creature's neural wiring. No soft-bodied mammal could—" Nara, however, wasn't listening to the captain's protests. The young lieutenant stared at the feed with something like reverence, her frills flushing a deep violet. On the screen, Rook wiped gore from his face with the back of his hand, then knelt beside the massive corpse. With methodical brutality, he wrenched free one of the creature's foot-long talons and tested its edge against his thumb. A slow, satisfied smile spread across his face. He was arming himself. Krell leaned forward, his ocular implants whirring as they recorded every movement. "Captain, we need to immediately reassess our parameters. This isn't luck, it's strategy. Observe how he's—" "Enough!" Vexis slammed a clawed fist onto the console, cracking the reinforced glass surface. "Deploy the second specimen from holding pen Delta. Let's see how your precious human fares against two of them." As the crew scrambled to comply, Zix-9 murmured loud enough for everyone to hear. "Ah, the Imperial scientific method in action. If at first the human doesn't die, throw progressively larger monsters at it, until statistical probability is satisfied." Nara bit back an entirely inappropriate laugh, then froze as Rook's head suddenly snapped up, not toward the jungle where the new threat would emerge, but directly at the hidden camera embedded in a nearby tree. As if he knew exactly where it was, as if he'd known all along. His lips curled into a smile that wasn't pleasant at all. Then the second Vorkan's hunting scream split the air, and the feed dissolved into chaos. Rook darting into the undergrowth with the two enraged beasts in close pursuit. Krell exhaled sharply. "He's leading them." Vexus hissed, her spiracles flaring. "Leading them where?" Zix-9's manipulators flew across the controls, pulling up a tactical map of the outpost's perimeter defenses. The blinking red dot marking Rook's position was moving in a deliberate, calculated arc. Not away from danger, but in a precise path that intersected with— "Oh," the droid said after a moment of stunned silence. "That's unfortunate." The map zoomed in, trajectory lines extending to show Rook's projected path. Straight through the predator breeding grounds, straight through the automated defense perimeter, straight toward them. On screen, Rook vanished into the trees, the crashing sounds of pursuit fading into the distance. The observation deck held its collective breath. Somewhere in the jungle, death was moving, and it was wearing a human face. The jungle screamed around Rook as he moved, not fleeing, but flowing through the undergrowth with a predator's grace that seemed to mock the very concept of prey. Behind him, twin sets of armored feet pounded the earth, each footfall sending tremors through the loamy soil. The Vorkan's enraged shrieks split the air, their bioluminescent markings pulsing crimson with bloodlust. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. Two hostiles, one path, no weapons, no problem. Ahead, the terrain sloped upward into a maze of volcanic rock formations, the black basalt steaming with geothermal vents that hissed like angry serpents. Rook's bare feet, already toughened by months of survival training on Earth's most hostile environments, left faint bloody prints as he vaulted over a fallen log. The stolen Vorkan talon, now lashed to his forearm with vines he'd stripped and braided during his first minutes on planet, gleamed wickedly in X-427's amber sunlight. Observation deck. Imperial science vessel. Omniscient. Captain Vexus Telor's claws flexed against the console, leaving fresh scratches in the polished surface. He's leading them into the thermal vent field. This ends now. Either the predators kill him, or the superheated steam cooks him alive. Dr. Krell Matani adjusted his ocular implants with trembling fingers, the mechanical lenses whirring as they struggled to keep focus through the jungle's heat distortion. You're missing the strategic implications, Captain. Watch closely. He's not running from them. He's herding them. On the flickering screen, Rook ducked behind a basalt column, just as the first Voracon lunged, its serrated claws screeching against stone. Instead of continuing his retreat, he did the unthinkable. He rolled toward the creature, passing beneath its armored belly in a move that shouldn't have been possible for a human's limited range of motion. The makeshift blade flashed upward in a precise arc, severing critical tendons where the beast's natural armor thinned at the joints. Fetid blue blood sprayed across the volcanic rock as the predator staggered sideways, its enraged howl cutting off abruptly when its massive bulk collapsed directly onto an active steam vent. The resulting eruption of superheated vapor filled the air with an awful sizzling sound and the stench of cooking flesh. Lieutenant Naravis clapped a hand over her mouth, her frilled ears flattening against her skull. By the 7 moons, he used the environment itself as a weapon. Zix-9's photoreceptors flickered through several emotional wavelengths before settling on something resembling horrified admiration. This is why humans terrify me. They don't just fight unfair, they redefine what fair even means in combat. The second Vorkan, now alone, circled more cautiously, its bioluminescence shifting to wary yellow. Rook backed toward a narrow crevice in the rock face, never taking his eyes off the creature as he raised his free hand in a gesture the Imperials didn't recognize. Middle finger extended upward in perfect defiance. Vexus's mandibles twitched in confusion. What is that primitive gesture? Krell coughed into his fist, suddenly fascinated by his console readouts. Historical records suggest it's an ancient human insult, Captain, dating back to their, pre-spaceflight era. The remaining Vorkan, provoked beyond reason by the gesture, or perhaps simply sensing its prey's momentary distraction, charged with a ground-shaking roar. Rook waited until the last possible microsecond before twisting his body sideways into the crevice, a space far too narrow for the massive predator. The beast realized its mistake too late, wedging itself hopelessly halfway through the gap. Rook emerged from the other side of the rock formation like a specter of death, his improvised weapon finding the exact weak point in the creature's spinal armor. The killing strike was delivered with such clinical precision that several of the Imperial science staff gasped. For 3 heartbeats, the jungle fell silent. Then, from the blood-soaked battlefield, Rook turned his sweat-streaked face toward the hidden camera once more. His chest heaved with exertion, his knuckles whitened around his gore-slicked weapon, and his eyes, those unnervingly calm human eyes, locked onto the lens with unsettling awareness. And he winked. The observation deck's silence shattered as alarms blared to life in a cascading wave of synthetic panic. Captain Vexus Telor's carapace flushed dark crimson, the pigment spreading across her exoskeleton like spilled ink as she spun toward the primary security feed. The human, Subject H287, though she was beginning to hate their clinical designation system, was gone. Only steaming predator corpses and blood-slicked volcanic rock marked where he'd stood moments before, that infuriating wink still burning in her compound vision. "Track him!" she snarled, her mandibles clicking so violently the translator implant stuttered. "I want every sensor on this ship focused on..." Zix-9's manipulators were already dancing across the console in a blur of motion, attempting to... Oh! The feed flickered, resolving into a blur of motion near perimeter sector 4. The droid's vocal modulator flattened in disbelief. He's moving at approximately 22 kilometers per hour uphill through razorvine thickets, in 120% standard gravity. A mechanical pause. That's biologically improbable for any species outside of Jingji-Leiji-Yin Gaizauti. Nara's frilled ears twitched as she cross-referenced the thermal scans. The geothermal vents. He's using the steam clouds to mask his heat signature. Every time a vent erupts, he moves. Her fingers trembled over the controls. It's like he mapped their eruption cycles within minutes of arriving. The jungle perimeter cameras struggled to maintain focus through the billowing steam. Between the swirling vapor curtains, glimpses of the human emerged, a shadow among shadows. Rook crouched low near a cluster of basalt pillars, his improvised weapon now honed to a razor's edge against volcanic glass. His eyes tracked the automated turret's patrol pattern with terrifying focus, muscles coiled like springs beneath sweat-slick skin. Krell's ocular implants whirred as they compensated for the thermal interference. Remarkable. He's not just hiding in the steam, he's using it as tactical cover. Watch how he times his movements to coincide with the largest eruptions. The scientist's voice trembled with something dangerously close to admiration. The thermal bloom completely obscures him from our scanners. Vexis slammed a clawed fist onto the command console, cracking the reinforced polymer surface. Seal the perimeter! Activate all defense protocols! The order came 3 seconds too late. Rook emerged from a rolling bank of superheated vapor like some ancient war deity, his body a study in controlled violence. In one fluid motion, he hurled the sharpened talon with terrifying precision. The improvised projectile found its mark, wedging perfectly into the turret's cooling vent. For one breathless moment, nothing happened. Then the weapon's barrel began glowing cherry red, its internal safety screaming as plasma containment failed. The explosion lit up the jungle in a shower of white-hot sparks and molten metal. Zix-9's photoreceptors dimmed to a stunned pale blue. He just turned a 200,000 credit Mark 7 defense turret into scrap metal. A mechanical sigh. With a boon. Inside the outpost's maintenance corridors, Rook moved with predatory silence. The stolen access codes from Private Jax's neural implant, extracted during their brief conversation, granted him surprising freedom. He paused at a junction, listening to the approaching footsteps of a patrol. The human did something then that no Galactic Empire tactical algorithm could have predicted. He climbed. Fingers finding purchase in conduit gaps, muscles straining, he pressed himself against the ceiling just as the guards passed beneath. Nara watched the security feed with widening eyes. He's not just infiltrating, he's rewriting our security protocols in real time. Her voice dropped to a whisper. No species adapts this quickly. The final obstacle stood between Rook and the observation deck, a biometric scanner keyed to Imperial DNA signatures. The human studied it for exactly 1.8 seconds before ripping open a wall panel. His hands moved with terrifying certainty as he cross-wired the system, bypassing security with a stolen maintenance chip and what appeared to be a strip of conductive fabric torn from his own clothing. Zix-9 projected a holographic schematic showing Rook's progress. The path was horrifyingly direct, a straight line to the command center. Captain, I strongly suggest we... The explosion tore through the reinforced doors before the droid could finish. Smoke and sparks billowed inward as the mangled security hatch collapsed from its frame. Through the acrid haze, a silhouette emerged, broad-shouldered, moving with that same terrifying economy of motion. Rook stepped into the observation deck, the stolen pulse rifle held loosely at his side. His breathing was steady despite the blood streaking his arms, the burns along his knuckles. That same infuriating grin split his face as he took in the stunned Imperial crew. Miss me. The rifle's power cell hit the deck with a thud, deliberately ejected. A challenge, an invitation. Silence stretched like a live wire. Then every alarm in the outpost screamed to life as the jungle's apex predators, drawn by the explosions and blood scent, began converging on their location. The observation deck's emergency lights bathed everything in pulsing crimson as proximity alarms wailed through the confined space. Captain Vex's Telor's claws flexed involuntarily, her carapace darkening to a matte battle black as she processed the dual threats before her, the blood-streaked humans standing defiantly in their midst, and the swarm of predators whose seismic footsteps already vibrated through the deck plating. The scent of ozone from shattered electronics mixed with the coppery tang of Rook's wounds, creating a visceral atmosphere of impending violence. Rook tossed the disabled rifle aside with a metallic clatter that echoed through the suddenly silent command center. "Won't matter," he said, his voice calm but carrying an undercurrent of urgency that contradicted his relaxed posture. His eyes never left Vex's far-seated orbs as he continued, "Your outer perimeter's toast. That brood mother will be chewing through your bulkheads in under 2 minutes." Zix-9's photoreceptors flickered through several wavelengths as it accessed the external surveillance feeds. When it spoke, its normally sarcastic vocal modulator carried an unfamiliar note of genuine alarm. "He's statistically likely to be correct. The Vorkan broodmother has joined the hunting party. Initial scans suggest she masses approximately 3 times standard specimens." The droid projected a holographic feed that made several junior officers recoil. A nightmarish, spiked behemoth tearing through reinforced plasteel like wet paper. Lieutenant Nara Viss's frills flared in a subconscious threat display as she looked between Rook and the horrifying security feeds. "Why warn us?" she demanded, her voice cracking slightly. "After what we did to you." Rook wiped a streak of blue predator blood from his brow with the back of his hand, revealing a deep gash that should have incapacitated any civilized species. "Because that," he jerked his chin toward the viewscreen, "is worse than you." His eyes locked onto Vex's with unnerving intensity. "And you've got the only FTL-capable ship on this rock." A tremor shook the deck as something massive impacted the outer walls. Rook's grin was all teeth and no humor. "I'd rather not try hitchhiking on a Vorkan." Dr. Krell Metani's ocular implants whirred as they cycled through magnification levels. "You're proposing an alliance?" The xenobiologist's voice trembled with equal parts terror and fascination. Another impact rocked the station, this time accompanied by the shriek of tearing metal. Rook didn't so much as stumble, his combat-honed balance keeping him rooted. "I'm proposing you stop gawking and start running," he snapped, all pretense of calm evaporating. "That bulkhead won't hold through another hit." What followed was a masterpiece of improvised survival that would later be studied and vehemently denied at Imperial war colleges across the galaxy. Zix-9's manipulators became a blur as the rogue droid hacked into the station's security grid with one hand while jury-rigging a portable shield generator with the other. 30 seconds of distraction," it announced, vocal modulator crackling with strain. "The broodmother really doesn't like high-frequency sonic pulses. Pity we can't stick around to study why." Krell led the desperate sprint through collapsing service tunnels, his encyclopedic knowledge of the station's layout proving invaluable. "Left here!" he shouted over the cacophony of alarms and distant predator roars. "The maintenance shaft bypasses the compromised sectors." Nara demonstrated why she'd been promoted despite her youth, rigging a plasma conduit to explode behind them with terrifying competence. The resulting fireball lit the corridor with hellish orange light, momentarily drowning out the sounds of pursuit. "That won't stop them for long," she panted, her frills pressed flat against her skull in fear. Vexis found herself running beside Rook, her carapace still darkened in instinctive combat readiness. "If we survive this," she hissed between mandible clicks, "I will personally see you spaced for this insubordination." Rook's answering laugh was shockingly genuine as he effortlessly matched her pace despite his injuries. "Captain, if we survive this, you'll be buying me a drink." His eyes gleamed with something that looked suspiciously like enjoyment. "This is the most fun I've had in months." The final stretch to the hangar bay became a nightmarish gauntlet of falling debris and flickering emergency lights. The broodmother's enraged screams echoed through the corridors, closer with each passing second. As they burst into the hangar, the sight of the sleek Imperial shuttle was like a vision of salvation, until Zix-9's scanners beeped a warning. "Power conduits are damaged," the droid reported. "We'll need 90 seconds for pre-flight checks, unless we want to explode during atmospheric exit." Rook was already moving toward the weapon locker near the hangar entrance. "Buy you 2 minutes!" he called over his shoulder as he armed himself with a heavy plasma cutter and a bandolier of grenades. "Try not to leave without me." The last thing they saw before the hangar door sealed was Rook standing defiantly in the center of the corridor, his stolen weapons humming to life as the first of the pursuing Vorkan rounded the corner. His laughter echoed through the closing gap. "Come on, ugly! Let's dance!" As the shuttle's engines whined to life and the deck plates trembled with the broodmother's approaching fury, Vexis found herself staring at the sealed doors. Against all reason, against every instinct of her species, she hesitated. "We should—" The shuttle lurched as Nara took manual control, her hands steady on the yoke. "We should leave," she interrupted, her voice firm despite the tears streaking her scaled cheeks. "That's what he's buying us." The last image on the view screen before they punched through the atmosphere showed the entire station shaking under some unimaginable impact. Then the clouds swallowed everything, leaving only questions and the echoing memory of human laughter in the tense silence of the shuttle cabin.